What is up, everybody? I'm hoping I'm actually live. I'm hoping this is actually working. Just testing out, of course, some technology here. It's only my second time giving this a shot here on YouTube. Yeah, I'm streaming at you live through my Nikon Z/Z6 using the Elgato Camlink 4K, and to hopefully eliminate lag or latency with my audio. Um, Instead of using my Yeti microphone that I've used in the past that kind of creates a second source, I've got a little lav mic tucked under my cap here, so that's my little video hack that I'm doing right now anyways. Giving that a shot, hoping that results in a little bit better video quality for you there. Yeah, I don't know, hopefully your 2020 is off to a good start. Really enjoying it here so far. Really want to make 2020 the year for YouTube for me. I've always been doing things like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all that goodness, but I feel like I've kind of been neglecting YouTube and really just enjoying getting more into video and sharing more things over video too. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Matt. I'm a photographer, professional photographer, based here on the Canadian prairies in Battleford, Saskatchewan. I've got a focus and a passion on wildlife and conservation photography, as well as community, and trying to do visual storytelling in my own backyard, in my own community, about the wilderness, wildlife, and the people in my community here in the Battlefords too. So on the channel, you can expect to see a lots more stuff about my own adventures and my journey. I'm also a Nikon professional, and I get gear to review from them from time to time, and I contribute to the website shuttermuse.com that's run by my friend Dan Carr, an excellent website. Definitely go check that out if you hadn't heard of that before. Yeah, so I do all kinds of gear reviews over on Dan's website, and a part of my work for Dan too is a series of interviews that I've started conducting almost exactly a year ago. I kicked that off with a great conversation with none other than Moose Peterson. Had a bunch of great conversations in 2019, and I really want 2020 to take it to the next level. I've got some lined up around the corner that you're going to be able to look forward to, and I'll share those here because when people agree to it anyways, I try to share a live screen recording if we're going out over Skype, or at least I'll share a little video and some of their photos and a transcript and some of the insights that they had about building their career with photography. Anyways, let's just jump right into it here. Over the holidays there, I had a calendar, my 2020 Saskatchewan Wild calendar that you may or may not have heard of. Yeah, sales are obviously kind of slowing down a little bit now that we're well into procrastination mode. If you do hit up the website, mattjakes.com/shop, you can still get yourself a copy. And the exciting thing about that calendar for me anyways is that was my first time really partnering with an organization and donating 15% all proceeds to CPAWS. That's the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society, their Saskatchewan chapter. I'm a big believer in, again, thinking globally and acting locally. We've got all kinds of big issues that we're facing, from climate change to biodiversity loss. And I think we're all kind of, taken aback by some things like the wildfires in Australia, but there's things you can do. You can support organizations in Australia, and I think it's also important to, again, appreciate where you are, appreciate your surroundings, do staycations when you can, and yeah, working with organizations like CPAWS and their Saskatchewan chapter is a way for me to kind of leverage my photography, leverage my storytelling to support the wildlife and wilderness right here in my own backyard too. There's all kinds of, again, all kinds of big things going on around the world, but nobody's going to take care of your backyard better than you. So yeah, that's what I did with that calendar, raising funds for CPAWS. And, drum roll please, I was really excited. We actually sold 107 calendars, and that was kind of my first time creating a calendar to raise funds in that sort of a way, to have that sort of a partnership with an organization that I have shared values with, and that just really exceeded my expectations, both in terms of that partnership or collaboration with CPAWS and your response too. So if we do the math and break out the calculator here, 107 calendars, I might have cheated and done the math ahead of time, but 107 calendars at 15% of the total gross sales, for me that resulted in $431.74 as a donation to CPAWS. So thank you very much. That's such a tremendous response and a great contribution. And I just stopped and thought for a minute when I crunched that number, $431.74. It's not exactly an exciting number. It might not be a sexy number. So yeah, I decided to round that up. I figured that was the only thing to do. I rounded that up and made it an even $500. And just a couple days ago, earlier this week, I made the trip into Saskatoon to meet with the staff there at the Parks and Wilderness Society, and they were just blown away and floored by your support. And yeah, they were really happy with that. And they offered me an opportunity to say, okay, well, where would you like to perhaps, direct those funds? And I gave it some thought, and an area that I thought would be smart or a great way to leverage your support and your donation there, especially considering one of the images in the calendar was this Grasslands Bison, and this Grasslands Bison here in this acrylic print, the Plains Bison from Grasslands National Park. I decided to donate and direct that $500 towards CPAW's efforts in protecting Plains Bison. And I'm just going to try a little thing here and do a little share screen with you. And oops, where are we? Yeah, switching over here to CPAWS, because I realize not everyone tuning in is from Saskatchewan, not everyone's from Canada, and not everybody that bought a calendar is from Canada or Saskatchewan either. You might be wondering what CPAWS is all about. So hopefully this is kind of legible. It's Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society, Saskatchewan chapter. And again, they're supporting a vision that you might have heard of. Other organizations kind of support this too. A vision of keeping at least half of Canada's public land and water wild. That's kind of, there's a couple different slogans out there, like nature needs half. It's that kind of same vision or principle that we, at a minimum at least, should be protecting at least half of all the land and water that we have for wildlife that ultimately we all depend on. So they focus on protecting large tracts of lands, freshwater and species within them so they can survive and thrive. And there's a couple different streams here in the prairies, parks, and forests. And where I donated your support, where I donated all the contributions to the calendar sales, was to the Sturgeon River Plains Bison here. And the Plains Bison, if you're not aware, again, bison are such an iconic North American species. They're, they live and they loom large in our storytelling and our images in our movies. There's a romance around the bison, and just they kind of evoke that idea of the Wild West and of the wild nature of North America. But they went from numbers that were estimated to be around 30 to 60 million at some point 150 years ago. And by the end of the 19th century, they were down to just a few hundred bison across all of North America. So they were literally at the very edge of extinction, at the brink of getting completely wiped out. So the bison is a tragedy story. It's also been a little bit of a success story in terms of conservation. We've had great efforts here, specifically around Elk Island National Park. I'm just highlighting that there. And the Sturgeon River Plains Bison story starts from Elk Island National Park, where 50 bison were originally brought over in 1969. The number eventually went up to about 500, which was great, and then now it's down to around 100 animals. We're not entirely sure exactly, but it's thought that a major anthrax outbreak about 10 years ago really was a major hit and almost wiped them out. They're also facing pressures from hunting, overhunting, predation, so a number of different issues there. And CPAWS is doing work. People who haven't heard of CPAWS, they're wondering what they do. Well, they kind of have a two-pronged approach here. They're working to campaign to get the bison listed as threatened under the Federal Species at Risk Act here in Canada. And they also work directly on the ground, and they've got a partnership that's just been launched with the Indigenous Guardians program that's there right around Prince Albert National Park. So they've got kind of that, again, two-pronged approach to working with policy and working with the people on the ground to help make a difference. So that's just kind of a look at CPAWS and what they do, and just happy to share that with you and show you a little bit behind the scenes of where your support through that calendar, where that's gone to. And again, if you don't have a calendar yet, you can pick one up. I will continue to donate 15% of all proceeds from the calendar at mattjakes.com/shop. Those proceeds will continue to go to CPAWS, a great organization working here in my backyard. But you're too late perhaps for the draw that I'm going to do right about now. And I've got 2 acrylic prints. I've got one hanging up on the wall back there, and the little spotlight that I had on it looks like it just died. It's the realities of a live broadcast. You got to roll with the punches here. But that's a 16 by 24 inch acrylic print, and I've got a 12 by 18 as well. And I promised that everybody who bought a calendar was entered to win one of these acrylic prints. So I just did a draw right before going live here, and drum roll, I had a 12 by 18 inch print going out to Barbara from Yorkton, Saskatchewan. Barbara bought a whole bunch of calendars. Obviously, she was giving those out as gifts over the holidays, perhaps. And I just can't thank her enough for her support. And it really was encouraging to see that she had received that through my random draw. And the other one is going out, the 16 by 24 that you can't see. That's bigger than this one. This is kind of a medium size. That large one on the wall, I'm going to get that mailed out to Lawanda in Saskatoon. So thank you so much, Barbara and Lawanda. Thank you for your support through the calendar, through CPAWS, protecting the plains bison here in Saskatchewan. Thank you so much. Next up, again, just hope your 2020 is going well, and I want to give a little update on where things are at for me. Again, I mentioned off the top that I want to make 2020 the year of YouTube. Other social media channels for me are doing great, but I've kind of neglected YouTube, and I really want to make 2020 about producing more videos, telling more stories using video, and engaging with you here on YouTube. So if you're into photography, if you're into wildlife photography, if you're into camera equipment, gear, or learning how to build a career out of your passion for telling stories behind the lens, you're at the right place. You can click that subscribe button with confidence, and it'd be awesome if we hit that little bell button too to get notified of when I release a new video. Next up for 2020 for me, I've got gear reviews. I've got a 300mm lens that I've just put out a little preview of that review over on my friend's website, shuttermuse.com. I'm a contributor at shuttermuse.com, and that's the latest piece that I've got over there. I'll just maybe do a little screen share again here too and show you that one. I'm just hoping this technology works, you know? It's kind of new stuff, doing this streaming and screen sharing stuff. But here's my hands-on with the 300mm f2.8. And this is just kind of looking at the dimensions and understanding what kind of a beast and a behemoth of a lens it is. You can see it's got this, it's actually a drop-in filter area at the back there too, because the front element is just so big that you're not really going to get a filter on there any other way than putting it at the back. So that's what Nikon does, and of course Canon and other folks too. Hand holding a large heavy lens. Yeah, I figured in my little hands-on preview for the lens I would share Joe McNally's classic 2008 video on the grip. You got to check that out if you're a photographer. You know, 2008, you're saying that's the, prehistoric age in terms of YouTube videos, how to properly brace yourself when you're holding either a long lens or pretty much any lens, and get the most, whether you've got vibration reduction or stabilization in your camera or not, how to use that grip to extend that and be able to take longer and longer shutter speed photos handheld. So understanding proper grip, proper technique can really take your image making to the next level. That's kind of an aside, but I did want to share here too. Again, check out this full story on shuttermuse.com, but I thought this was an interesting side-by-side here. We've got on the left my Nikon 200-500 f5.6, and on the right it's the 300 f2.8. So you can see that when you jump down and when you really want that f2.8 maximum aperture in the lens, you're making some sacrifices and making some trade-offs there, because suddenly that lens is every bit as big as a full zoom from 2 to 500, and let me tell you, it's heavier. It's a beast, it's a behemoth, that's for sure. So stay tuned. I'm going to release that full review over on shuttermuse.com. planning on putting together a little YouTube video here too, showing you some of the results I had with that lens, playing with it in the field for about 2 weeks there. Got some sample shots. And let's just switch back to the main camera here. But yeah, also on shuttermuse.com, 2019, I launched a series of interviews, kicked it off with one of my idols, none other than Moose Peterson, the legendary wildlife photographer, also a warplane photographer. Kind of, we've all got our passions and our side passions, and Moose has got quite the 1-2 punch, or the combination of his photography interest there is quite diverse. And I kicked off that series of interviews with Moose Peterson. You can check that one out. I've got it up on my YouTube channel already. I'm sharing that Skype call with Moose. He's got so much insight to share about how he built his career and how he makes his living with his passion. And I really want 2020 to be the year where I take that interview series and move it up to the next level. So I'm playing with technology like this, with streaming, with sharing stuff, with getting videos up and produced for you quicker. I've got 2 interviews that I've already recorded and I'm looking forward to sharing soon, and that's Wayne Simpson. He's a portrait photographer from Ontario, Canada here, and he produces these introspective, you might even say dark or moody portraits, and they're just so powerful. And it's the type of thing that with my photography, I want to add that dimension to the stories that I'm telling around wildlife and around conservation, around community. To be able to do better portraiture is on my to-do list for what I want to develop, my skills. The other interview I just wrapped up too is with Michelle Valberg, another Canadian photographer, another photographer from Ontario. She's a National Geographic photographer with decades of experience, and she's actually got the cover of Canadian Geographic magazine. I think it's still on newsstands right now. And on her cover, she's got a tight shot of Grasslands Bison from Grasslands National Park in Canada. And we had a great little chat about that, about our shared passion for that sort of stuff. And in that conversation, she really shares how she's trying to give back and make a difference, particularly up in the north in the Arctic. I lived for 3 years, not in the Arctic, but in Whitehorse, Yukon, kind of up in the north. And let me tell you, it's easy to fall in love with the north, and Michelle obviously has a passion and a love for the north as well too. Next up for me too, I've got some trips planned, working again with CPAWS. I'm going to be heading into Prince Albert National Park, not too far away from here actually, just a few hours away. And that trip's been in the works for a long time, but yeah, the weather didn't always cooperate. Back in December, there actually wasn't enough snowfall down yet, and the last couple weeks, yeah, it was like -30, -35. That does not need translation to Fahrenheit. It is what it is. It's kind of the same thing. It's cold, a little bit too cold to be out there on the land for a few days without, risking life and limb and camera equipment too. So anyways, we're headed out to see the Sturgeon River Plains Bison soon, and really going to look forward to, being side by side with CPAWS and learning so much from the Indigenous Guardians as they launch their program there to help conserve and protect the bison. And another aspect of that trip too is partnering up or getting to ride along with Parks Canada as they undertake their kind of track survey that they do. They need to have a good base of snow, and they do a little bit of an aerial survey to, I don't know again what all technology or spotting binoculars, what it's based on, but they do their tracking, aerial tracking of the plains bison footprints through the snow in the park. So I'm really looking forward to coming back and sharing some stories with you here on the channel about that trip. Stay tuned for more in 2020 for sure. Thank you so much for tuning in. Congratulations again to Barbara and Lawanda for your, congratulations on picking up those acrylic prints, and thank you so much for your support through the calendar. That's going to make a difference for wildlife, wilderness here in Saskatchewan. So if this is the sort of thing that you're interested in, photography, wildlife, wilderness, conservation, learning more about how to harness your passion for photography to purpose and how to make a profit with your passion too, you're at the right place. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell too. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you'd like to see on this channel coming up. 2020 is the year. Let's get going. Let's share this journey together. So hopefully we'll see you on the flip side and in the stream.